As I'm showing my father these chains, he immediately snapped. Displays were thrown on me. Punches started to come to my face. That was the first thing I focused on how to connect with Belly to make my first step in the hip hop industry.
Kilani Jewellery.
My name is Akram Kalani. I'm one of the owners and one of the main guys that check all of the custom designs and everything that comes out of the Kilani Jewellery Toronto Max factory. You know, we come from a background that involves in jewelry, from family, aunts, uncles, everyone that's within the Kilani Jewellery family actually runs and work within jewelry business. The first memory that I have is basically listening to hip hop music, Tupac Shakur and Biggie, and that's where it all started. I knew from that moment, as I was in my parents' shop, there has to be something to do with hip hop jewelry and Kalani jewelry. You know, I was young, I was in my family, parents' jewelry shop, and I was into the jewelry making. As you know, all of my family roots goes back in history with jewelry making, and that's how I knew I was part of this plan, being in the jewelry game. You know, hip hop was booming in the early 90s, beginning in 2000, and I was born in the 1980s. From that time, you know, I was very involved in the hip hop music, the hip hop look, the hip hop culture. I was part of it from that time as I was young, and I always wanted to be able to produce or make jewelry for all these hip hop artists. As you know, jewelry and hip hop is really attached together, and when it comes down to hip hop, for them to introduce themselves or be able to become more even popular, they need to make their own custom design pieces or their own chains, and that's how they basically put out the look for their image. So jewelry and hip hop was always involved together or always attached together. The only one thing, there wasn't the right jeweler out there to represent the hip hop culture as it is today. You know, if I can recall, or many of the viewers that's watching me today, there was back then on Much Music, and there was a segment in the night where it represents all of the Canadian hip hop. Now, knowing that we just came into Canada, we opened up our business, my family was maintaining to do classic jewelry making, which is the obvious jewelry that everyone sees all around. I wanted to be unique, I wanted to be different. I always wanted to involve myself in hip hop since I was young. As you know, this culture was always growing in me. And I remember watching Rap City. If many of the people that actually viewing us right now would actually have a recall on the Rap City segment on Much Music in the nighttime to represent or to present many of the Canadian and Toronto hip hop artists. And that time they dropped a song for Belly. Belly, I think, with Genuine, I think, Pressure, Under Pressure. And once I seen the song and I seen Belly, and I knew he was actually a Middle Eastern background, and from Ottawa, that was the first thing I focused on how to connect with Belly to make my first step in the hip hop industry. Thank you, Belly. Yeah, you know, there's a big story when it goes down to hip hop and me and my father. You know, when we first started, Tarek wasn't in the country yet. It was me, my dad, my younger brother, and the rest of my family, obviously. But mostly it was me and my father focused on being in the shop when we first opened up in the Scarborough market. And Mojo, my younger brother, was always coming in the weekends after school. From these days, you know what I mean, I always wanted to pursue my vision, my ideas of what I want to do too. And it was very tough because, you know what I mean, like older mentality, a little bit comes stubborn. Each one has their own ways of creating and making ideas. Me being young at the time, and hip hop was not accepted yet in everyone's home, basically. So it was very tough for you to present it to someone who's really old-minded or old school at the time. So I wanted to do hip hop. I really wanted to sell hip hop. So I decided to wait to the Friday or end of the week And almost the end of the day, I decided to go to one of the wholesalers that I know that sells some of the hip hop jewelry chains. At the time, I was around 16, 17 years old. So I went to the office, collected 4 or 5 chains, hip hop chains, meaning bullet chains back then they used to be called, including a lion head, and it had rubies in the eyes, it was a big one. And I took them on a consignment from the wholesaler to take them back to the store. As you know, in Scarborough Market, we used to open on the weekend too, Saturdays and Sundays. So I said to myself, let me bring these chains, take them in there and see what I can do within this weekend and feel if I can actually do hip hop jewelry or not. From that moment, once I actually took these chains and I drove myself, which is I took the TTC train to the store at the time. And I got to the store. As I'm showing my father these chains, he immediately snapped, went off. He was going crazy. Displays were thrown on me. Punches started to come to my face. What did you do? Who told you? Who allowed you? You have no right to actually do such a thing without taking permissions, blah, blah, blah. This gold is expensive, it's too heavy. You know, gold wasn't so expensive at the time, right? But all the jewelry making was extremely heavy, like how we do it now. So he wasn't expecting to basically purchase a 1 kilo of 4 chains only. It gives him less opportunities to make money by having only 4 pieces instead of having 60 pieces, let's say. So as I'm taking these punches and all these displays getting thrown on me, I received a client as I'm in the fest of fighting, basically. And he asked for one of the chains that I had in my hand. He stopped us from the argument. He ended up buying the chain and he ended up buying that lion pendant. His name is Chris. He's a dread guy. I still can locate where he's from. He's from the Danforth and Victoria Park, somewhere around there. He's still my client. He's been here. I have a full video for him to visit us here. And we talked about that same chain one time to our viewers. And as incredible the whole situation and how it went, Chris didn't want to let go of me because he knew I had a kind of big fight with my dad over hip hop and chains. So he ended up going and grabbing all his friends to come in and actually buy the rest of the chains I have. And I actually ended up selling all of them except one left. And from that day, my father looked at me and he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Hip hop it is." So this is how my first recollect of how I actually resumed and forced hip hop jewelry into the making. The technology evolution has changed completely, where it allows us to be more creative and be able to create more detail and finish on our jewelry from start to end. When it comes down to the technology of designing, the creation of diamond setting, the making of ideas and jewelry and characters and pieces, it has elevated from 20 years ago till now, including there has been tools advanced completely, programs came into the computers that allows us to actually advance our imaging and bring it to a better quality finish when it comes down to rendering and taking the render and turning it into a jewelry piece. There, it's important. Massive change between before and now. The jewelry making before was very simple, very basic. It had basic tools, basic ideas on how to create the wax and to create the designs. Many people yet was using hand way of carving on waxing, which is it's cool and all that, but it doesn't allow them to give them the lens of how clear and clean the work can be once you have a great program that can work on creating jewelry or designing jewelry like Matrix, Rhino Gold right now. The new technology of this has elevated the designing of custom making. So the elevation of the designing programs from Rhino to Matrix has made a huge change on how the renders coming in and how the quality of jewelry turning from a render or an image to a jewelry piece. Remember, all that involves tools and advanced tools that's needed in there, including practice and experience. It comes in within the human practice. that takes a lot of work, including us. We had to go through a lot of practice before we got to where we at right now. So when it comes down to finishing and technology from 20 years and now, and the difference, man, huge difference, massive difference, including so much settings and quality and difference in setting and engraving that actually the jewelry industry has witnessed by having the Toronto Max created by Kilani Jewellery completely, taking over the world with the detail and the finish and the type of engraving and the tools that we created to make the setting becomes the leading brand or the leading setting of all settings all around the world. Guys, it's incredible. It took us so many years to understand how to make our jewelry becomes more clean and more advanced, and it has better finish, but at the same time, it took us so much experience in making so much ideas and so much pieces before we came to create Toronto Max. Toronto Max was one of the best things we ever invented, and it's going to lead the jewelry industry right through all around the world with the Toronto Max to make a huge change in the way you're going to carry or be able to look at jewelry in the future. You know, where we started there in the jewelry market, we had a small space, wasn't so big. It didn't allow us to be more creative than what it is right here at Kilani Jewelry's complex. As you know, we created more space, we created our in-house factory, our in-house designing room, our in-house quality control, our in-house, you know, online department that's taking over the world right now with the new technology, you know what I mean, with our app that we built, Kilani Jewellery. All you gotta do is just click up a button, you can connect to our team and start your designs with us. This wasn't available when we were at the jewelry market. All these creations wasn't available. Toronto Max itself, we could have never probably be able to create it or invent it if it wasn't for this complex. Now, the difference between Kilani before and now, we definitely, I can say now, we're on top of the world when it comes down to making jewelry, and it comes down to leading the world with the jewelry industry and the jewelry custom making. Kilani Jewellery definitely is the #1 brand right now in the world for making jewelry. The future of Kilani Jewellery, there's so much vision for Kilani Jewellery, and a lot of ideas keeps dropping, but the solid ideas that's keeping us up to date is our app, Kilani Jewellery, and you know, us working on the Toronto Max Institute for the future to be able to train and teach people on how to be able to be setters, how to be able to be jewelers, designers, or how to be able to be within the jewelry business. So the Toronto Max Institute is the future for Kilani Jewellery, including our late night talk show. As you know, we already have our Fresh on the Oven every Saturday, every Saturday on 12 o'clock. We try to present it to you guys and bring you all the beautiful creation and jewelry that we make throughout the week. But we're still working on more shows to bring in the light, to bring in the joy of our viewers and followers by thinking ahead, thinking for the future. So the late night talk show is definitely one of the future of Kilani Jewellery complex. Where do I see Kilani Jewellery in the next 5 years? I see Kilani Jewellery worldwide. I can see already, which is we're already speaking on that, the expansion of Kilani Jewellery and having different branches all around the world, including New York, England, California, Vancouver, British Columbia, Montreal. We are working on getting the Kilani Jewellery complex to be available and close to everyone's home. When it comes down to social media and online with Kilani Jewellery, we are completely, or when it comes down to our online in the next 5 years, here at Kilani Jewellery, we're constantly working on creating content, making sure that our app is up to date. We are up to date so we can keep up with the rise of the technology and the new world. So I want you guys to know in the next 5 years where Kilani is going to be at, we're just with the technology. As fast as rising, we're trying to come in with it. So the next 5 years, I definitely see Kilani all over the sites, every website, on every site, on every social media will be popping, that's for sure.